evening, Cubes of the Cash. Gary B, the casual comic guy here, and joining me as most Tuesdays, we have Rob, Fat Stacks of Comics. How you doing tonight, Rob?
It's not end of month and end of fiscal year, so I'm better than I was the last 2 weeks.
Through the weeds, right, buddy?
Oh, jeez.
There's light at the end of the forest. There you go.
Somewhere.
Right, my other Tuesday guy down there in the corner, Steve the Voice White. How you doing, Steve?
Good day, eh?
Right.
Ooh, you're from Australia now.
And Steve and I are talking how we had no view of the eclipse because we were just straight cloud coverage.
Yeah.
But I had NASA on and I was watching it through the NASA site. And of course, guys, our guest of the hour, his first time on the channel. Please welcome Keven from Entropy and Comics. How you doing tonight, Keven?
I'm doing well, and I hope you guys are too. And to you, the viewing audience, and in the chat, hey, greetings, community. My name's Keven of Entropy and Comics, and I'm here to hang out with you guys and give a little bit in-depth conversation about who I am and what I do. I'm a guy who started out as a young kid, around 7, old guy now, and I just was privy to a couple books here and there, and the next thing I knew, I ended up with just shy of probably 100 short boxes of books at this point. But really, the journey along the way was, for me, more important than just collecting the books. So I decided in that time, most recently in the past 3.5 years, to show you guys, the viewing audience, of what I've been collecting over the years. So that's kind of what gave rise to Entropy and Comics.
Nice. And of course, for all of you watching, Kevin's links are in the description below. So please go sub him up and follow, see what he's doing over there, as well as my 2 guests. Their links are also in the description. But without further ado, let's go say hi to the crowd here we got in the chat, and then we'll come back to you for your first book. So first in, Raul, how you doing tonight, sir? Hialeah Comic Bro, great to see you, buddy. James Las Cruces, good evening, sir. Keven, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Miss Bobby Catalano, how you doing tonight, Bobby? Great to see you. One of my all-time favorite people, Jerry the Jitterbug. Great to see you, buddy.
Hey,
Steve popping in to say hi. David over at Mark Spector Comics. Good evening, David. Nice to see you, sir. Let's see. We have Joe, Anachronic Comics. Good evening, Joe. Nice to see you, buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
We have... All right. We have a conversation going on here between a couple of the guys. All right, and as people are getting their notifications and popping in, we'll keep giving a quick nod to them. But for the moment, Keven, we're going to kick it back to you. We're going to start out with your first book, sir.
Cool. As I made mention before, I kind of got into books when I was around 7. So at that time, what ended up coming out was a movie that my father was highly anticipating. The movie was a sci-fi based movie, kind of well known, somewhat, I guess, called Star Wars. So he wanted to go ahead and take me to go see Star Wars in the first week of its launch. And where he took me was to a place called Ramen's Chinese Theater. So this I ended up receiving during Christmas as a 3-pack. So my dad took me and my brother to Ramen's Chinese Theater to see Star Wars, waited hours. Once we watched the movie, we all loved it. And again, at Christmas, I received this 3-pack by my aunt. And this kind of started a lot off for me. It was this book, along with a couple of before it, but this really, as a gift, started me to want to collect comics.
Wow, I guess so.
I received this, along, I said, with the other 3-pack. It's that Whitman style 3-pack that was sold at, I think it was JCPenney's at the time.
Yep.
And I received this by my aunt. She knew I loved books. I opened up the pack. I ended up going through the books. I ended up sitting. I didn't even open up the rest of my gifts that night. My dad put them in the car. Went through the books, and I remember one of the first things I wanted to do is I was looking for a bag and board around that place. It was at my grandmother's, as if I'm going to find one. And that was the first thing I did. Is I asked my dad the next day to go ahead and take me to the shop. And
what's the matter, Grandma? You don't got comic book bags and boards? Come on.
Ever since I started collecting, they had bags and boards, which was, again, you're talking, what is it, 77, 78? And I was always protecting my stuff back then.
Yeah, I was just thinking Grandma wouldn't necessarily have that on hand. But I do remember those, like everything, you'd always get the toys and stuff and be like scrounging around trying to find batteries or whatever else. So I could just see you scrounge around trying to find bags and boards for the comics.
And that really started it all off for me. I mean, it really wasn't just the book. It wasn't just the fact that we just seen the movie a few months before.
Yeah.
It was, I guess, a culmination, and in my opinion, kind of serendipitous.
Nice.
I remember one of my first movies in the theater that I had begged my dad to take me to was the 1979 King Kong. Just loved. I think it was 79. It was 78 or 79.
That sounds about right. I do remember that.
Oh, I was just completely in awe the whole time, and that started my King Kong love affair.
So you can relate totally.
Oh yeah, yeah. At that age, the stuff that makes impressions on you, it sticks with you forever.
And I was going to use the same words. I was very impressionable, and it was something that outside of just hanging out with the wrong crowd or doing sports or whatever, this was something that really fascinated me in a way that reading or even art never did before. So it was an introduction to something that I guess never looked appealing at all to me, at the time. And now, like I said, look how many boxes later I am deep. It's like, wow, who would have ever guessed?
Right? You never know what's going to set you down a path, right? So, but who was your favorite character from that first movie? Was it Han, Luke, Chewbacca, Leia, Vader?
You know what? I think what really blew my mind was the projection on what things could be. So the idea behind these robots, the artificial intelligence, the idea that you can travel beyond our own solar system, let alone galaxy, and be there in such short time periods was to me fascinating. It wasn't just the characters. But I also got a lot of this again from my dad. I will touch on down the road of like one of the books that he has. That's one of my special ones. But it was more fascinating to me about, I guess, the whole ball of wax than it was individual things that made that ball of wax up. So I was going, are you kidding me?
Right, it already felt like a good established world going into it. It kind of escaped a few of the tropes of like first movies.
Absolutely, and that was the thing. I mean, I saw some spacey stuff before, and I guess when you start talking about oh my god, Space Rogers and Buck Rogers and all these other type of things that were following suit, it's exactly what you were saying. Is being that they captured a little bit of success, they just jumped on that bandwagon and beat it to death till it became a overutilized trope to a point that it was no longer, even appealing. So that, I think, in part of its appeal, broke all those stereotypes of what came, what was before it.
Right, and then got a lot of other projects greenlit because of it that were in development hell.
Except that Buck Rogers was from way before Star Wars and inspired Flash Gordon, who Star Wars was written because he couldn't do the Flash Gordon movie that he wanted to do, so he created Star Wars to begin with. So
no, it's no beat on the original as much as it shows how much in between Star Wars and the original of what we saw these type of sci-fi things.
Star Wars relaunched
copied between and just beaten up.
Star Wars definitely launched a renaissance in sci-fi that was launched, and some of it was not good.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There were stuff in between that was not only campy but good. So you have things like your Star Trek and so forth. It was not only well written in some regards, and at times decently acted, but it was more of again touching on things that technologies and things like that, ideas that were beyond what was presently accepted or even known. Which again, that was far in between. Like these type of aspects weren't really prevalent when it came to movie making, TV shows, or even in comics.
Right. I mean, you always had those iconic movies that reinvigorate a genre, like that would sci-fi, Aliens with sci-fi and horror together. Just all that kind of, the Godfather movies with Mom and Apocalypse Now with War, and you just always have those iconic films that light a fire under a genre again for a while. Mm-hmm. All right, number 2, sir.
All right. Well, as I was talking about before, my father it really introduced me to a lot of stuff, science, sci-fi, so forth. So when my grandmother had died about a decade ago,
That's cool.
Nice.
I had found my father's old collection in my grandmother's garage.
Wow.
Now, what I remember is during that same Christmas time period era when I received that Star Wars book, I remember asking my grandfather, "Where's my dad's books?" So his reply was, or actually my grandmother's reply was, "I had Grandpa get rid of them."
Oh.
My grandfather then looked over at my father and looked over at me, somewhat smiled, and then started handing out the gifts again. All right. What I didn't realize and what he didn't tell Grandma is he hid him in the garage up in the top.
Yeah, he didn't follow instructions.
So this, after my grandmother had passed away and we were going through the stuff, was one of the books that I ended up finding. Now, the reason why I picked this book out in particular this is the first book that my son and I read together when I was rehydrated this a little bit. So the reason why I felt that to be significant was my son was 14 when I and he started 1-2 Comic Talk, which is our other channel. Now that we started roughly 5 years ago. My son was 14. My dad was 14 when he bought and read this.
Wow.
Interesting.
So those 3 generations was something that really hit me hard of, holy shit, the last time this thing was read was somebody that was 14. My son is 14. And it was my dad. What was going through his mind? So I asked my son, I go, did you pick out the book that you want? And let's read it together because I want to know what was going through the mind of a 14-year-old dad.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
I love the Space Wars series. So that and the Space Adventures, those two from Charleston were just a lot of fun.
So yeah, that's my number 2 book, and yeah, that's it's a rather special book, not only because of the significance of what I just told you, but also there was some other significance that most people don't realize. One of the original really software accomplishing, breaking the whole ceiling of what was done before as far as games was a game called Space Wars. Now it's a 2-person game that you actually get the program, you put your quarter in and you can play it at arcade malls. It was first developed in the late 60s, but the software and game didn't come out until the mid to late 70s. It was a very not much played game. Very few people know about this game. But what was utilized off the game was the software itself. Because it was so ahead of its time, that's what allowed us to have such simply played games like Space Invaders, your Asteroids, Centipede, Millipede. All these games stood on the shoulders of that platform, Space Wars.
Oh, wow. Cool info.
That is neat. I've never heard of that game before.
Yeah, again, it was the software was ripped apart and stolen by so many different people. The guy didn't actually really nail down the actual software as far as how it was being utilized. So people just utilize it in their own way in their game. So it kind of made the processing so much easier because he already did all the heavy lifting.
Right. Well, cool stuff. All right, number 3, sir.
Number 3.
Oh, but great generational connectivity on that other book. That was cool.
Well, thank you. When I came back into comics, the reason why I came back is my half brother was begging me to come back. He said the knowledge that I had, the books that I had, I should just share with people, if nothing else. Over at the one of my LCSs here is called Comic Book. Of the group that they have that supports local comic book creators and artists is called Sketchy Bug. Now, I met a person there. His name was David Pepos. He was part of the Sketchy Bug group. He was just starting out, and one of his books caught some eye. But the second book that came out was a book called Going to the Chapel, which came out in 2019.
Oh, wow.
Now, David essentially just released this in 2019 when I first met him, and he was pitching me on this thing. This was a book that he was trying to really get out there, and he felt good about. And this book is really a wild ride, like heist of love and money and adventure, and something I just reinvigorated my love for comics just by the way he pitched it.
Is
Now,
that his signature? Is in the middle of it?
Now, those of you that know me know that I am a self-proclaimed signature slut. About 35% of my collection is signed.
Beautiful.
Nice.
So like I said before, I nearly have 100 boxes of books.
Signature King, eat your heart out.
And these two other guys on the panel also like signatures quite a bit.
All right. So yeah, almost. I mean, I can go. I have a show, a random show that I call it. How random is that? Is what I call it. And what I do is I take from the chat a letter, a number, and the direction that I'm counting a book from, and I pull that book out of my box. So if it's a letter A, number 23, and count from the back, I count from the back out of my A box and pull out that box and give you a background history. More times than not, I'm telling you about how I got it signed.
Right. That's right.
So
Good memories, right?
I'm sorry?
Said good memories. It gives you more connection to the book.
So one of the big reasons why, and I will get down to that explanation soon, that I love signatures is I like the stories behind the stories that I go by. There's so much goes into these projects more than what we get on the surface level reading them. So I like to know who they worked with, how it came about, what it took, possibly what's coming up, and how I may help in some regards to possibly promote the projects. So that was how I really fell in love with getting my signatures. I love the story behind the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And that's a cool cover. I've never seen that book before. That one's new to me.
That is new to me.
I highly recommend this book. This was my top 5 books for 2019. There's another one in here that I will talk about that was definitely on my top of the top 5. And this made me fall in love with comics all over again.
That's so cool. I'm going to apologize now because my computer is about to do some kind of security patch and it's going to throw me off of here. So I'll try to get back on as soon as it's done with whatever it's going to do to me.
Oh,
okay.
Technology.
And just take a quick moment here, and we're going to highlight Marcus, and we're going to remind everybody that tonight after this show, you can catch Marcus on FOC and Chill over on his channel. Go hang out there. Sometimes I'll have that on while I'm driving to work because I go to work after the show. But Marcus will be going strong, so go check him out, please, after this show. Super nice guy, super great community member. Canadian Security. Joe's picking on Steve.
It's not my fault. It's whatever the hell software is in here. It's giving me this countdown that says it's about to explode. So there'll be a nuclear blast you'll see over the wall.
Oh, I hope not.
That's what happens when you let Moose do the patches. All right, number 4, Kevin.
All right, number 4. When I came back in and I was looking at Spider-Man stuff, this was the first Spider-Man story I came back to. This launched in 2019, and Spider-Man Life Story. This, as I said, was my reintroduction to the Spider-Man series and my introduction to Chip Zdarsky. Both impressed me, and Spider-Man Life Story not only gave me a good account of Peter through the times, but also me. I remember my journey through all the different eras. Obviously, I don't have any recount of the 60s and small recount of the 70s. It was 70s for fun, even as a kid. But I do recount a lot of the stories that were initially told to me as a kid of the, original Spider-Man series. And then with the first, 150 to 200 as a standalone series, this impressed the hell out of me. This was amazing. And it allowed me to go ahead and reintroduce me to a Spider-Man series of present era that now I buy. I mean, everything Spider. I'm just a Spider nut now. And this kind of launched it all. So, Chip, I blame you.
You gonna blame Nick Spencer on Chip Zdarsky?
Oh, it's a great story. So I basically saying thank you also. So
nice.
Yeah,
And
Spider-Man life story is a great story. And for those that are even curious about a Spider-Man story, I highly recommend that because it's such a standalone thing.
well, there's no shortage of Spider-Man fans, that's for sure, or books. Between him and Batman, there's plenty of comics out there.
True that. Right? The only problem with both those characters is finding the right writer to write something that people are not ready to bash instantaneously. We've seen it before, we've seen it done better. Is usually the gripes of most.
Yeah, well, but somehow they keep on surviving. Oh, we lost Steve.
Sorry,
Canadian
Steve. Hopefully
security
you'll
caught
be
up
right
with
back.
him. All right, number 5, sir.
All right.
And I have heard good things about that Spider-Man life story. I also heard good things about the Fantastic Four one as well.
Yeah, I do have that one. Like I said, the Spider-Man one was the one that set it off for me. All right, now 5. I am a huge symbiote fan. Now, what started off for me was this book right here with symbiotes, essentially. This book, I once bought, way back in. I have another one, but bought when it first came out. I bought, and basically, because I'm a comic shop holder, he told me about the whole Venom history and the origin, and ever since he told me just a little bit about it, I was hooked. So he obtained for me Amazing Spider-Man 298, 299, and 300. And for me, even back then, those 3 books cost me over $125. Now we're talking in 1993.
Wow.
So that was a lot for back then. And yeah, I've been buying Venom books more consistently than any other series, and it kind of started with this one. And
it's funny because I've had that book like 5-6 times, and I give it away every time I get it.
Well,
I have never owned that book ever.
Wow,
What?
really? And I keep walking past Sal. One day I'm going to get this thing signed.
I must accidentally have 7 or 8 copies of it. I mean,
Right. It's not short printed. It's out there.
no, that's what I'm saying. There's like a billion of them out there, and
Oh yeah.
I mean, although getting if you want a 9.8, that's the hard bit, especially these days. I mean, anything that's out there raw, the foil was dinged up, and so like getting a 9.4 seems to be, even a 9.6 seems to be somewhat hard. Every time I've sent them in, it seems like I always get like a 9.4 back, but until I finally got 1.98, and I was like, all right, I'm done submitting this goddamn book.
How many did you submit to get to the 9.8?
Oh, probably 7 or 8.
Week.
Just send them all in and just say, hey, pre-screen. Just.
Well, do you have plus there's a gold foil and a really rare black foil one, right?
Yeah. With an error print. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I don't have those. I don't care.
Yeah, they're actually rather rare. I've never seen one.
I love the Mark Bagley art on that cover.
There's a platinum one too, I think.
I'm not certain, but I believe you.
I thought I saw one recently at a con. It was a silver platinum color, but
interesting.
Being a symbiote and a Spider-Man fan,
yeah,
you gotta tell us who your all-time favorite Spider-Man and Venom artist is.
That's a difficult one because it kind of bounces around. Because I do like the traditional look of the old 90s. So what you have with Bagley back then, Bagley, or how you pronounce it, and some of the Romita stuff back in the early days too. Even McFarlane, the stuff that he was doing was kind of cool. So everyone at their own time period, I can find even modern day stuff that's like, yeah, just look how sick Barron's looks. You know what I mean? Or even when he does the new Carnage 6 that's coming out tomorrow. Some of these things, it's hard to really pinpoint for me to go, yeah, that was the artist, as opposed to going, for the era, that artist hit what it was trying to be captured at the time. What was it, Sam Keith, right? He was the one that gave us the tongue, right? Before that, no one really gave us a real protruding tongue.
Eric Larson did the tongue.
Larson, thank you. Larson.
Yeah,
So
Eric Larson.
No one was really doing the Larson. So did Larson do a great contribution? Absolutely. Is he my
I like Larson's run after Todd. I thought it was great.
What it looks like, I'm not the biggest fan, but I liked his contribution and what he was doing at the time. You know,
for
without
me,
him, we wouldn't have an understanding of why the tongue is, why he salivas like he does, all that. That
Right.
never would have been about.
Well, it's the thing, right? Like all these different creators have added on to the mythos.
Right.
But I mean, I'm always going to be a John Romita Senior purist when it comes to Spider-Man.
Okay.
And yeah, Todd was great. I didn't mind his stuff sometimes. But I thought Larson was a great follow-up to Todd because he had the most thankless job in comics at the time, was following up Todd McFarlane's run on Spider-Man, and I thought he came in and did a great job. I really like Bagley's Spider-Man as well. But I thought there was some unsung heroes that drew Spider-Man, like Sal Buscema had a great run on Web of Spider-Man, which I thought was great. I thought he did a great job. You know, some of these other people that have contributed that really don't get mentioned a lot. Even some of the Charles Vest stuff and some of the Charles Vest Spider-Man's amazing.
And I was going to say the same thing. There's times when Vespa stuff has actually hit me hard. So it's really been in and out. Well, just like this, it's been really in and out of who I felt. You know, there's been a couple times when I even like what Knock has done on a few things. Overall, I don't like his covers, but when
he's hit or miss for me.
Right. But when it comes to the interior art, if he's given time, it looks cool.
Like, I don't care for his face covers. I think they all look rushed and just sloppy. But and I think that's there's other stuff I see, I'm like, that's a great cover. I'm like, Knock did that. I'm like, wow, but he did this, but now he does something that good.
It's precisely how I feel.
Del Otto.
And yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
When we now that's an individual. It looks like he does take a lot of time with his work, and some of the stuff comes across very painted. You know, it doesn't look.
I think sometimes my gripe with Del Otto is sometimes he's too dark on his covers. I know that's his thing, but
not all of them like that. He has a lot that aren't that way. But for a while, he definitely had a lot of the dark cover with perched on a gargoyle, which got repetitive, and that's the big problem I think with any cover artist when they all of a sudden get in demand on something. All of a sudden, they tend to produce a lot of the same.
Gleason with the web
because they get
the same thing. Exactly what I was
They hit something and they do it over and over again. And it's like, okay, great. You know what? I don't blame you for, especially if you find something that's easy to do that you can ride and make some money on. But
like an ASM 300.
Yeah, that's a whole different discussion.
Yes,
about
it is.
About homages, but
and Milt likes the darkness of Del Otto.
Anyways,
don't get me wrong. There's some Del Ottos I love. Like I love his Spider-Woman 1 cover that he did. That was great.
There's a shock here. This is in Gary B likes Spider-Woman.
I know, right? It's a shocker. Almost as shocking as your Spider-Man love, right? All right, number 6, Kevin.
All right, now number 6, I'm going to hit a hard left. Here we go. Now,
hard left.
Vinyl
that's a great series.
Introduction to Doug Wagner's work.
I
awesome. Enjoyed, and still to this day enjoy, a good horror and gore story. However, it has to be written well. And Vinyl not only is written very well and contains all the stories that I just mentioned, but it actually exceeds in all aspects. Now, this story follows 2 characters, one a serial killer, Walter, and the other an undercover agent that is portraying himself as Walter's best friend. Now, this agent gets kidnapped in front of Walter while they're at a park playing like a chess game or something like that. And now Walter's on a journey to get his best friend back. And make no mistake, Walter knows who this guy is. Now, at the same point, the reason why it's called Vinyl is for Walter to go in his little psychotic little serial killer state, he plays music on a vinyl. And that takes him to his little place. So he calls up all his serial killer friends. They'll get his friend back. And that's the story of Vinyl. Now, if you're not familiar with Wagner work, the first one that he wrote that I know of was Plastic. He's going to do another one coming out called Plastic 2. So it went Plastic, Vinyl, Plush, and then it's going to go back. So he plays with conceptual ideas of context, something that you can play with.
Yeah.
Yeah, little trigger points for stories.
So it's very, very sick and twisted and awesome, all wrapped into one. And it's a very psychological story.
Yeah, because there's a twist to it because he has dementia, and it's the records that bring him out of the dementia.
And I was just going to touch on how he is also he's suffering significantly from dementia,
which is a real problem too.
Friends that kind of bring him back at times, and the system to be able to deal with life. Also, what allows him to deal with life is the fact that he just goes out and just slays.
That's his happy place.
A no remorse kind of guy, right?
It's a great story, and this reinvigorated my love for the horror and gore in comics. And as you most know, that go way back in the golden age, this was some of the very popular stuff that was being sold for a solid generation back in the early 1900s, all the way up to the mid to late 50s, or about to late 40s into the early to mid 50s.
1955.
When things like this were really prevalent. And for this to touch back on things like that I knew my dad would talk about, some of the stories that he was reading, kind of brought back some of those ideas, and it just vinyl is a love for me.
And
was
even
it a
back
4-issue or a 5-issue series? It was 5, wasn't it?
I believe it to be 5.
Yeah.
And even back then, in those early times, people were like being introduced to horror through fables and fairy tales, which before they got Disneyfied. A lot of those are, if you read the originals, they're really dark.
Yeah, fairy tales.
And a lot of them are messed up.
yeah, they definitely are pretty sick and twisted. By today's standards, we've mellowed them out significantly.
Right. All right, number 7, sir.
All right, to change things up. Now, when I was asked to come back by my half brother into the comic industry, because one, I had somewhat to offer to people as far as information, and 2, books, knowledge, so forth. But really, what my half brother was doing is he was bringing my son to the shops, and my son was playing Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I knew of a story that was coming out that was a fairy tale story, that was a very fantasy-based story, and that really already had me wrapped up before it already came out. I wanted to meet not only the writer, but I was curious about this book, and I really want to pick it up. So this book, this was the first book my son and I. Oh, hey, number 7.
Got some Post-its on there. Kento.
This was this first signing event my son and I went to, and
cool. Remark
Comics, and this started my son and I wanting to do a YouTube channel, 1-2 Comic Talk. And this was the story and book that got us started. Now, nice. I instantly enjoyed this story so much that it gave rise to, like I said, our journey into the YouTube channel is 1-2 Comic Talk, but also out of it gave rise to Entropy and Comics. And meeting Dave was just the beginning that day. I say Dave. I'm sorry. Well, David Bohr too was there. But who else? It was his husband was there, and I was talking a lot to him. And between David and his husband and talk to those guys, I totally fell in love with the story. I wanted to promote the story and the works of these guys. And all I wanted to do after that was just basically get a YouTube channel and talk to people like you about stories like this. Kanto to this day is one of my favorite stories, and I believe it always will be. Yes, this was signed by David Bohr down here back in 2019, and then I sent it back in and had Drew Zucker do me a
that is neat, the remark.
And the art in that is just so nice and unique. It has a cool aesthetic to it.
It is very fantasy based, and I believe the art does reflect that. It's a story of heart, and it tugs at the heartstrings over and over again as you go on this journey with this little knight. It is one of the most pleasant books that I've ever been able to read, and it's just one that every time I sit down to read it, it reminds me of why I kind of got into comics. You know, how the pleasure I receive out of reading a book and just being able to allow it to take me, I guess, in an immersion state,
right,
into a place that it just only a writer and artist can take you, you know, and
Right.
and this is one of those books that does it for me.
Now, Milt was asking if you like Canto or Twig better. I don't know if you read
Canto or what?
Twig.
Twig. I have that too. And Twig, you know, the journeys are so different, and I enjoy them both for what the uniqueness that they are. The world that I've been able to be essentially extracting out of Canto seems a little more vast, and it seems because of such, I'm able to allow it to again get immersed by it. Whereas Twig, as you're hopping from place to place and you're running through scene, you know, it never allows you to be able to sit in one place that long to really allow
more kinetic and always a little frantic, huh?
More action.
That definitely, you know, you're definitely on you're on a time scale that you know that you're being rushed through this.
Yep.
So it's not until at the end and everything's kind of resolved that you're like, oh, now I see really what this was, you know, and it allows you to truly appreciate it at the back end.
And Canto still keeps coming out with new stories.
Yeah,
there's one more volume they have to drop. John Comics and Kids, who's in there, that speaks highly of David, and we've not only, meaning John and I, had conversations about Canto, but yeah, it's coming up on its final series, and I know John and I are both chomping on the bit for its final series to come out. But it is, I would sad to say, it's going to be probably bittersweet. So I look forward to having our final discussions about Canto in its series as it ends, but many more discussions on how we greatly appreciate it.
But then you don't know what next great thing he'll create. I sometimes like that things have a definitive beginning and end, because sometimes it makes it a stronger, instead of always having to come up with new scenarios. Sometimes it's just, there's nothing wrong with having a good enclosed tale. Absolutely. Where it has a definitive start, definitive end, and they know exactly what beats they need to hit and where they're going, and it's just concise telling. Sometimes it's just stronger that way.
Yeah, you can really ruin a story by thinking that you just want to continue to capitalize on the success of one by franchising it out and just killing it by doing a successive story. That just ruins sometimes your love for the original story.
Oh, thank you, Tina. All right, number 8, sir.
Yeah, 8. All right, now, when my son and I were really starting to cruise around and talking to a bunch of artists and creators, we went to LA Comic-Con. LA Comic-Con back in 2019, to be more specific. And at that time, my son and I, Kai, we were the last in line to get a bunch of books signed by Scotty Young. Now, we were privileged as such, being that we were the last in line, to have a private conversation with Scotty. And they were talking about how his upcoming series was being well received by not only the higher ups of Marvel, but just the regular people inside the regular offices.
Well, we know that book's number 8 because you wrote it on the front.
Hey!
I love Strange Academy. It's just, I'm one of those people. I love Scotty Young's writing, and
yeah, it's really good.
I love all the different odd characters in it. There's some characters I saw at first, I'm like, oh, I'm not going to care for that character. And then they ended up being like favorites. Mm-hmm. Like he gives them each a nice, distinct voice, and throughout that whole series, the relationships that form are fantastic.
I totally agree. What Scotty was telling us, my son and I, is that he thought it interesting and odd how everyone is told the stories of the mutants and told the different stories of everyone's individual powers or how someone got this or that, but they really didn't go too far in depth about either magic or how people were being trained or so forth. So when he talked about, even to us way back then, before the book was launched, about he wanted to tell a story and put all these people into a school and show you how the development was to be and put and make more significance about magic and a Marvel universe that's always had it. Right. I was sold. I'm like, are you kidding me? When do I buy this? So when he told me, when it was coming out, what he was doing, I was all in. Now this, people that know that I have multiple copies of this stuff. And yes, even John has a copy and that I sold him. I took down to his house. Yeah, I'm not only a huge fan and totally agree with what you say, Gary, but what I find very interesting and significant is this shows you how Marvel's looking to the future for these type of books, concepts, and characters. So we have a bunch of characters that can all stand on their own now.
Right, yeah, 10 first appearances in that book.
And because of this series and then its successive one after, you got now what's coming out in this Blood Hunt that will be coming out. You'll see some action with the Strange Academy. You've already seen another interaction with Strange Academy in a past miniseries that just happened. You're going to start seeing more Strange Academy in the future. And this isn't not only not going anywhere anytime soon, but you've seen everybody copy it. You had Titans Academy. You had all these other things that were trying to be happening everywhere else.
Yep.
So this set it off for me. This was the first time, which people that know, I am not a fan of team books. I don't do X-Men. I don't do Avengers. I don't do Invaders. I don't do any of that stuff. This got me doing team books.
Now we got to fix the paper. Come on, Marvel, fix the paper for Christ's sake.
Like, who would have thought, like, you care so much about Daryl Dormammu and like what happened with him in that book, or the zombie girl, or even the Frost kids, the Frost Giant kids, just
Tooth,
or the Enchantress's kids. Like, you find out all these horrible things that happened to them growing up, and then you don't hate them as much anymore. Then you're on their side, and just so much happens in that series. Gaslamp, a great new villain.
Yes. Not only a great new villain, but like you said, what it does, it shows the dynamics of the characters and how they dealing with the villain. And it brought out, like you said, more background to these characters that we were just learning about.
Right, because he completely exploits this poor little kid with like no self-confidence and just tears him apart. Yeah.
Yeah, makes him wish his life away, his soul away, kind of.
Hey, good, all right, great series. Number 9.
9. Now, when I started my channel, Entropy in Comics, one of the things I want to do is, which I've always tried to do, is do something that no one has ever done before. So I was starting a spec thing that I didn't see anybody doing before. I was calling it Spec News. Now, people that know me know that I work in the entertainment industry. I work for a union called Local 33 and have been a union member for over 34 years, coming up on 35 now. Now, in doing so, that allows me to walk by a lot of offices. And when I mean offices, I mean Oni Press, Image, Skybound, you name it. I'm walking by a lot of these offices. So when I heard a discussion about a comic book called Shadecraft and another one called Stray Dogs, I instantly was interested. This I ended up finding out was optioned 3 months even before its release. Now, not many books are optioned prior to the release, and Stray Dogs was my first spec book and video that I put up on Entropy in Comics. So this story truly blew my mind. Conceptually speaking, it was brilliant, and its presentation even more so. So after receiving a small portion of the story prior to its public release, I knew everyone was going to dig it, and I jumped all over this thing. So even today, it still holds as a great story. And as we see, we knew, and as Gary was saying, some books just have to end. This book ended very well, but not many of us want to end. This gave rise to the new birth of the book that's going to be an ongoing series called Feral. And Feral is no less done as well. This started it all. And as you see, yes, it's triple signed by Tony, Trish, and Tone Rodriguez. This is the 1 in 25 acetate.
I was going to say, did you go in on all the multiple covers they were doing for each issue?
Yeah. And I not only have everything signed, but pretty much box number 8 is all Stray Dogs, all signed. And then I have a bunch of slabs of that stuff too.
Nice.
And if you notice, that is a Stray Dogs Comic Bug exclusive, also signed by Tony Fleeks.
Freaking cool.
So yeah, I'm kind of all in on this stuff.
Mill says, great story. The son got his dog's pictures in the 4th issue.
Yeah, and that's awesome. There's even, I think it's God Tank has his dog in there too. They will be doing the same thing for Feral. So submit your cat photos. Okay. Tony, Trish, they'll all be looking at him. They'll hopefully put them in there for you.
Nice. All right, number 10.
10. All right. Now, this character, Bailey Briggs, exhibits basically some of the true heart-wrenching scenarios that are very prevalent today. Now, Bailey is a young, confused child, lost, loving, and caring person who needs love and guidance. This small character was first introduced in Spider-Man issue number 7. Now, I ended up going to a signing event about 6 months before the release of Spider-Man issue number 7, and I was talking to Dan Slott. And as I mentioned before, I'm luckily and fortunate to be living in an area that I'm continuously going to signing events. I went to 3 last week, and I'm going to 1 tomorrow. And I run into a lot of people quite frequently. So when I was talking to Dan, and he was telling me he was working on a project, I got out of him what he was essentially working on. And this wasn't supposed to be as big of a character as it was due to you guys. This character now has his own ongoing series in a time when Marvel is not doing any new ongoing series. Throughout all of 2024, they're only entertaining miniseries, and we'll not be looking at anything as a new ongoing series unless some weird anomaly happens. This and Spider-Woman are the only 2 ongoing series that have come out in the past 8 months. Spider-Boy is just a lot of the things I think what everyone fell in love with the original Spider-Man.
Only they also launched Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Black Panther, Ultimate X-Men, the Ultimates. There's a bunch of them coming out.
Those are only now being considered as ongoing series, but they were all meant to be 5-issue minis. They were all initially meant to be 5-issue minis. Throughout 2024, that was the idea. It's depending on sales or dictating the ongoing how they will do each series, and they'll entertain either a 5-issue mini or a full arc with a half arc after each time, depending on sales. And that's only according to what I'm hearing on this side. So that was the idea. That was the model in which that Marvel wanted to follow this year. But again, back to Spider-Boy, this was probably one of the stories outside of Once Upon a Future at the End of the World that really wrenches my heart.
Yeah, I've only read him in the Spider-Woman title in the last issue he was in with her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Journey, still a thing.
It gets to the for me, it's like too many Bat people, too many Spider people. There just becomes a lot to follow.
Yep, I didn't jump on that at all. Same thing.
Yeah,
with Straight
I had won a signed copy of that, and I used it for a giveaway.
Oh, okay.
So why not? Because if I'm not going to read it, someone who's going to enjoy it may as well have it. I'm not going to hang on to something just to hang on to something.
Exactly.
If I don't, I'll get it out there to someone that it'll mean something more to.
And as it stands right now, that the people that I do know reading the series, I've yet to hear anyone not like it.
He was I liked him in Spider-Woman. That was my first read of him, and I enjoyed his interaction with her. I thought he was written well in that book. It was very sympathetically written.
Yeah, this character seems that way.
Drop the title.
Definitely. And yeah, of all that I was really trying to find, because it really was difficult to find 10 books that I felt covered some form of gambit in which of my collecting. You know what I mean? So I was trying to find something that was kind of fun, something lighthearted, some hardcore, some, all of that. And
right, because our interests are all over the board when we read, right?
Well, it as initially simple as it sounds, it's actually truly difficult to sit there and go, I'm going to find a 10-1-1. That is not an easy task. So it became rather difficult because I was continuously pulling out books and then putting books back, going, yes, no.
Right. Well, it's tough, but that's why it's not a top 10, right? It's just 10 favorites. You can always come back and do 10 more. It's just it's fun that way. All right, number 11 with an extended personal story attached.
All right, so this is my special book. Now, this book came out on April 16th,
Holy cow.
1992. Now, double signed, one by Rob Liefeld, and then the other one by, I think it's Murray. Yeah, Brian Murray. And originally, when it was launched, and the launch of this was at Golden Apple Comics. That was a massive launch, much like the McFarlane one, where there were helicopters and news cameras and everything, because this was considered the first book of Image to be launched through them.
Did he use a ballpoint pen to sign that?
It almost seems that way, huh?
It looks like it.
Brian, yeah. And he actually even made a little mark down there with a nastiness.
Holy crap.
So now that night, I was working that day, I should say. And the event was only 3 blocks away from our work. I was working at Television City, CBS. And the event was at Golden Apple Comics right there in Hollywood. And I couldn't get to it. So that night was my birthday celebration. And I ended up going to my mother's house. So I was feeling a little disappointed. And as I was finally relaxing and laughing a little bit, my father showed up. And he was a little concerned that he would be late. And the reason why is I thought he was just working late. And no, what he was is he was in line getting this book for me.
Oh, wow. How nice.
He knew I couldn't be there. So he waited, got off work early, waited in a 3.5, 4 hour line for a book that he, other than for his son to want, he didn't give a shit about. And yeah.
Holy crap. That's cool.
And got this book for me. So this is, to this day, it's not valued outside of the sentimental.
Right?
Story that goes with it.
Sentimental value is now priceless.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's got the personal value is immense.
Yeah. And that's what it's all about, right? That connection.
Absolutely. So it was another one of those things that kind of really hit home of how comics are, how people valued me at the time, and how I knew I valued my comics. So the gesture was far more significant than just someone just buying or handing over a comic or even just having something signed. Yeah. To this day, it's one of the most special moments, it's
right, because you'll never look at that book and not think about that.
Right.
It's just great. That's the best thing about comics.
Yeah, I love the story behind that book. It means so much to me.
Right. And when you look through your long boxes, you're coming across those special issues like that. It just puts a smile on your face. It takes you back to another time, places you in a place that sometimes in a mindset you need to be in that helps you cheer you up a bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, young blood equals Grail. In the case of this, most definitely.
Brings us to your spec pick, sir.
Well, as I made mention, I'm a huge Spider-Boy fan. Now, if you were to hit me up years ago, I would have definitely said Stray Dogs. But I am definitely a Spider-Boy fan. This being the first appearance of Spider-Boy, which was only supposed to be a short-lived appearance. Right. Like I said, Slott was only supposed to do a few issues, and it wasn't supposed to be something that was supposed to be liked that much. No one really thought it would be enjoyed as much as it was. It was essentially almost be like a one-shot. But with the overwhelming popularity, it turned into the ongoing series that it is now, and I'm a huge fan. I mean, I got this, and I went all in on all kinds of other ones. And like I said before, yes, I am a signature slut. So I like my fine,
Nothing wrong with the signatures. As long as you get to talk to the creators, and get to meet them and talk about the stories, right?
Absolutely. Most definitely. So yeah, my spec is definitely Spider-Boy. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. It may not
with the animated movies, you never know when he'll pop up.
Right. Well, especially when we talk animation, especially when you talk anything in the streaming world.
Draw those young kids into it.
More for the younger generation. And in my opinion, I believe that's where a lot of this is going. With the introduction of a lot of these characters that we've been seeing of late, I think it's more gearing towards the next generation of stuff. And I think Spider-Boy is one of those characters.
See, I'm still waiting for my my Spider Bitch series to come out.
You Spider who?
Spider Bitch. She was in Old Man Logan.
I don't remember that character. I have Old Man Logan stuff. But...
Yeah, she was. She's the son of Hawkeye, and I can't remember her. Damn it, Rob, do you remember? Because Rob's a Spider. But she's a daughter of Hawkeye, and I forgot the
Somebody's
other.
Googling it right now in the chat. Somebody's bleep,
Right.
bleep, 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 bleep.
She's a pretty brutal introduction too. Like another one of those where she's just like in a corner and she's ready to fight.
Can I check this character out? I think I found a new character.
There you go. Yeah, it was one I picked up.
Spider Bitch.
Right,
I love it. Been funny if she was part dog.
Right. But I'm like, too bad we'll never see this character because now that Disney has them, it's just the name alone they won't make it.
Yeah, right.
You're muted, Rob.
Peter Parker's youngest daughter.
Yes,
Tanya and Clint Barton, which means Clint was into some different age disparity.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of young.
He's a bad boy.
Yeah, I think that was a point in the comics too. Like he was being given some crap about it.
Yeah, and the stepdaughter of Tanya's husband, Ultron 8. Whatever, it's a bunch of weird, messed up stuff.
That is weird. That's definitely odd.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a first appearance you can pick up for about $10.
Cheap spec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cheap spec is good spec.
I wouldn't call it spec. We'll never see that because of what her name is.
Yeah.
And now the circumstances, it'll definitely be out.
Well, right. And just like she sees you and you're on the wrong side, you're gonna get killed type of character.
Mm-hmm.
She's pretty brutal. But yeah, great books, Kevin. Great stories. Love the connection with the ones with your dad and your son. That's what it's about. Those stories are what make comics.
I found, I believe, my personal niche and my relationship with books, and it's allowed me to enjoy it, I guess, in my own way. And if you guys dig it, cool.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's why we all ended up in this community. We have all these interests that we can share with like-minded people.
Right.
You know, like who in your regular life would you talk to about that? Like on a regular basis, most people don't have those people.
Yep, especially at work.
I totally agree. I was having a discussion with the owner of one of the LCSs around here. I made a recommendation of starting another group, a reading group called the Comic Book Club. And the idea behind that is allowing people to come on Wednesday nights and have discussions about the books that they buy and respect to the books that they buy by publishers. So it'd be like Marvel groups, DC groups, indie groups, talk respective about the actual books that they buy, meaning a particular title, so forth.
Right.
Now, the reason why I do what I do was I couldn't have always be afforded the luxuries of time because I have such an erratic work schedule.
Right.
I will go in tomorrow at 10:30 tomorrow night to go do what they call an out. A concert will be happening at the YouTube Theater, not far from my house. And after that band plays, I will have to remove their video wall. The next day, I will go and prepare Bill Maher for his show and then walk in Friday and do the show, which is at 7 a.m. So what I'm getting at is I don't have set time periods. My time is erratic. So in that being understood, so is how I even collect, or even how I have the luxury to be able to maybe find time on a Wednesday to talk to people about books. YouTube. The beauty about YouTube is there's individuals like yourselves that are around talking books. And I love being able to sit in on discussions, knowing that I don't always have the luxury to be able to sit on a regimented time, like going to my shop and talking to people. This has been able to give me something I've never been able to have my whole life.
Right. And there's something for any hour you're awake that's out there on YouTube. And you always got Comic Journey on Insomniac Theater.
That guy never sleeps ever.
Yep. But no, great.
Between CJ and Jigs, you can pretty much be covered. Those
Yeah.
two guys are always on.
Well, yeah, because I mean they're going to go for 8-9 hours. So.
Oh yeah.
But great show, Kevin. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad we could reschedule you. And great books. Really enjoyed hearing all your stories. We're going to do that thing where we go around and see what everyone's got coming up. So we're going to start always with Rob. Rob, what's coming up for you, sir?
Oh, goodness gracious. On Sunday, I went to a comic book show. That haul will be
holy crap.
Released
Nice
on Thursday.
So you picked up a thing or two.
I might have. And Thursday, we will assess Thursday, Saturday, of course, only slabs. This week, we have Mr. Comics 89 coming on for one more appearance before he heads off to start his basic training.
Nice. That'll be cool.
And sometime in the next week or so, I'll announce the 2,000 subscriber giveaway. Today, we hit the 2,000 mark, so we'll make sure that it sits and marinades for a week or two. In the meantime, that gives everybody that much more time to hit up the pinned video on the channel to make sure that they enter to win the Jay Lee signed and remarked Something is Killing the Children. And then, of course, we'll do the giveaway. We'll do a giveaway for the other stuff during the live events.
You got someone who's looking for a plug here, Rob.
Yeah.
The co-host of that show, I don't know. Hey, some Canadian.
Right.
Maybe it's Steve. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be me.
You're Canadian.
I'm a henchman.
You have a wall.
Yeah, I got a great wall of comics.
Oh, shots fired. Oh, goodness. All right, Steve, what's coming up for you, sir?
Oh, congrats there, Rob, on the 2,000. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on Saturday, I did a signing. I went to a signing too, right there. Jason Fabok at what was the place there? Gotham Central Comics, and I met that Chris guy thing there, Canadian, and I threw up a video of that. So tomorrow I'll be doing the Voices Choices. Friday I'm going to be on with Joe Anachronic Comics. We're doing the Espresso Mail Call, so that'll be fun. And then on Evil's Comics on Saturday night, when we're walking along the beam with the Stephen King. We're doing this book here now, which is the Wizard in Glass. We're starting that one.
Nice.
So that'll be fun.
Nice.
Coming up for me in 2 days, we have Sarah, silver-haired Bronze Age babe, back on for In the Hot Seat. She's done a couple 10-1-1 episodes, and now we're just going to be straight interviewing her. And then next Tuesday, we have Scott back on from Hoarder's Hide for another go at the 10-1-1. Scott's always fun and brings some great.
Can he pick just 10 books?
Right. And of course, Kevin, what's coming up for you, sir?
As I always do, I have Kmart, which is Kevin's most anticipated reads. I launched that a few hours ago, and I do that every Tuesday.
That's clever.
Basically, my most anticipated reads every week. Also, I do another show called How Random Is That? It's a show based on, I asked the viewing audience to go ahead and give me a letter, a number, and the direction I'll be counting from. I grab that box, I grab that book, and I give you a little background history of why I bought that book, what I think of the book, and why I still own that book. And then I do my monthly pre-orders. And that's pretty much me.
Nice. All right. And again, guys, all their links are in the description below. And when you're done viewing this show, head on over to Marcus's channel and check out FOC and Chill with Marcus and crew. You won't be disappointed. And check out Anaconda Comics Show on Friday. Huh?
I said they might actually cover FOC.
Don't be silly. But guys, first I want to thank everyone on the panel. Thank you guys. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you to the awesome audience we had tonight. We had a lot of people turn out for you, Kevin. So thank you very much to them for showing up to support everybody. And some fun chats, some great books, always great company. And as I like to end these things, keep it casual.